My granddaughter woke me before sunrise, shoved my own house keys into my hand, and said, "Grandma, can you have breakfast on the table by 5? Leo likes a full spread before work. He's very particular about his routine. Since we're staying here now, it's kind of your job as the host." At 5 in the morning, in my house, that I paid for. 3 hours later, I was quietly changing the alarm on their phones and planning a little surprise for their perfect morning, one that would make very clear who actually ran this home. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Before I tell you how I went from sweet old grandma in the corner to the woman who flipped the entire script, let me do what my grandson calls the YouTube thing. Tell me in the comments where you're listening from, and if you like stories about messy families and older women finally standing up for themselves, go ahead and subscribe to EchoLens Stories so you don't miss the next one. My name is Helen Ward. I'm 68 years old, a retired school secretary, a widow, and apparently the last person in this family who remembers what basic respect looks like. I live in an old brick house at the edge of a small river town. Nothing fancy, but it's solid. My husband and I raised 2 kids in that house. I planted the lilac bush by the porch myself when my daughter Claire was born. The mortgage has been paid off longer than some influencers have been alive. It is, quite literally, my life's work sitting on a corner lot, which is exactly why people suddenly become very interested in my living situation. It started on a Thursday afternoon in late October. I was in the kitchen, making tea and talking to my kettle like I always do when the house is too quiet, when I heard a car door slam hard enough to rattle the window. I looked out and saw a shiny black SUV I didn't recognize, parked crooked across my driveway like it had never met a boundary in its life. The driver's door opened, and out stepped my daughter Claire in oversized sunglasses and a cream-colored coat that did not look like something a social worker's salary should be paying for. She was followed by a tall man in a fitted jacket, carrying 2 huge suitcases like we were a hotel lobby. My 12-year-old granddaughter Mia hopped out of the back with headphones around her neck, and my 9-year-old grandson Aiden was glued to a tablet, walking while watching as if sidewalks were an optional feature on Earth. "Mom!" Claire shouted, not bothering to ring the bell. She just pushed the door open with her hip and marched straight in. "We're here!" "We," I repeated, wiping my hands on the dish towel as they streamed past me. "And where exactly is here, Claire? Because I don't remember taking reservations." "Don't start," she said, kissing my cheek like a drive-by. "I texted you yesterday." She had, technically, a 6-word masterpiece. "Might need to stay with you. Long story." No dates, no how long, no, "Is this okay?" Classic Claire. The man set the luggage down in the hallway and turned toward me with a smile that probably worked on waitresses and bank managers. "Mrs. Ward, I'm Leo," he said, holding out his hand. "It's really good to finally meet you. I've heard so much about this place." I shook his hand and noted 3 things in order. 1. The watch, expensive. 2. The shoes, no scuffs. 3. The way his eyes went straight past me and did a full survey of my living room like he was checking square footage. "And I've heard absolutely nothing about you," I said, "since my daughter apparently got married without telling me." Claire winced. "Mom, not like that. We were going to have a ceremony later, a proper one. The courthouse thing just happened." "Like a car accident," I said dryly. "Sudden, preventable, and with a lot of paperwork afterward." Mia snorted. Aiden didn't look up from his game. Leo laughed like I'd told a harmless joke. "Your mom is funny," he told Claire, as if I weren't standing right there. "She is when she isn't being dramatic," Claire replied, already hauling a suitcase toward the hallway. Come on, kids, we'll take the upstairs rooms. It'll be cozy. Excuse me? I said. Upstairs rooms? Yeah, she called over her shoulder. The kids in my old room, me and Leo in the guest room. It's just for a while. A while, I repeated. How long is a while, Claire? A weekend? A week? A season? She stopped on the stairs and looked down at me like she was explaining something simple to one of her clients. Our apartment building had a pipe burst, she said. They've got to tear into walls, redo everything. Insurance is covering some hotel nights, but it's cramped, noisy, and honestly, Mom, it makes way more sense for us to be here. You're alone in this big house. We're a family. It's practical. There it was, the first little hook of practical. I see, I said, and asking first would have been impractical? She rolled her eyes, the same way she used to when she was 16, and I told her she couldn't wear ripped jeans to Grandma's funeral. Mom, you always said this house is for the family, she said. Well, we're the family. She wasn't wrong. When my husband died, the kids and I stood on this very porch, and I told them, as long as I'm alive, this house is a place you can come back to. I should have added, with notice, and without acting like you own the deed. Fine, I said at last, because what else do most mothers say when their child shows up with 2 kids and too much drama? We'll make it work. But next time, you ask. Do you understand me, Claire Margaret? She gave me the tight little smile she uses when she wants me to stop talking. Of course, Mom. You're a lifesaver. We'd be lost without you. Leo put an arm around her shoulders and kissed her head. To someone who didn't know any better, it might have looked sweet. To me, it looked like a man standing next to a ladder he planned to climb. Let me show you the rooms before anyone claims anything I forgot I owned, I said. As we walked upstairs, Leo did that same slow scan of the walls, the banister, the old framed photographs. I could almost hear the calculator running behind his eyes. My grandparents bought this place in '54, I said casually. No mortgage since Clinton. Taxes are a nuisance, but manageable. Leo glanced at me. That's impressive, he said. A free and clear house like this? In this market? You're sitting on a gold mine, Mrs. Ward. I thought I was sitting on a couch, I replied. Shows what I know. That night, after the kids had colonized my daughter's old room with tangled chargers and snack wrappers, and Leo had made a big show of carrying a box labeled "Important Files" into the guest room, we sat around my small kitchen table eating the simple stew I'd thrown together. Mom, this is so much better than restaurant food, Claire said, which was her way of saying, I expect this every night now. Leo nodded, finishing his second bowl. You really have a knack for this, Mrs. Ward. Home-cooked food, a solid house, a quiet street. Honestly, it's not safe for you to be here alone. There it was, the second hook. I've been here alone for 9 years, I said. The house and I have an understanding. I mean, if something happened, he said smoothly. A fall, a break-in, a medical emergency. Your generation doesn't always think about those risks. Claire worries about you. Claire put her spoon down and folded her hands like she was delivering news at a family meeting. That's actually something we wanted to talk to you about, Mom, she said. Not tonight, I replied automatically. Tonight, she insisted, because the timing is actually perfect. Perfect. For whom, I wondered. Leo reached into his important files box and pulled out a thin folder, which should have been my third warning flag. Men like Leo always carry thin folders. The thicker the lies, the thinner the folder.
Now, this is just an idea, he said, laying it on the table and turning it so it faced me. Don't panic. People who say don't panic usually have very bad ideas, I said. He chuckled, like I'd amused him again. It's a family protection arrangement, he said. Basically, we put the house into a managed trust. That way, if something happens to you, things are smoother with the inheritance. No probate nightmares, no government grabbing a piece, no distant cousins popping up out of nowhere. Claire jumped in, anxious and eager. And it means you're not dealing with everything yourself, she added. You'd still live here, of course. Nothing changes day to day. But Leo would oversee the legal stuff. He does this for other families. He's good at it. So I would put the house where exactly? I asked, even though I could read the word trust in big letters on the front of the folder. In the trust, Leo said, tapping the document. You'd be the primary beneficiary now, the kids later, and I'd be the trustee, just to make sure all the boring admin gets handled properly. In other words, I said slowly, I give legal control of my home to my son-in-law of, 4 months? 6, Claire corrected, as if that changed anything. And in return, I get what, exactly? Security, Leo said. Convenience. Peace of mind. He said the words like he was offering me a spa package. I looked down at the neat little paragraphs and legal phrases. I may be 68, but I've spent decades watching parents sign forms without reading them, then come back to the school furious when the consequences showed up. I always read the fine print. Interesting, I said, sliding the folder back toward him. I'll have my attorney look it over. You have an attorney? Claire blurted, the way some people say, you have a rocket launcher? Yes, I said. Women who own things often do.
Leo recovered quickly. Of course, that's smart, he said. We just wanted to start the conversation. Get you thinking. There are some time-sensitive tax advantages if you act before the end of the year. And you just happened to land on my doorstep right before those advantages expired. I said mildly, what a coincidence. Claire sighed, irritation leaking through her practiced concern. Mom, why do you always have to assume we're up to something? She said. We're trying to help you. You're getting older. This house is a lot. Don't you ever feel overwhelmed? Yes, I did. Often. The stairs, the yard, the repairs. But I'd rather be overwhelmed by leaves in the gutter than by someone else's hand on my life. I feel tired, I said. That's different. Leo leaned forward, forearms on the table, voice soft, like he was talking to an especially stubborn client. Look, Mrs. Ward, you've done amazingly well. But at some point, someone has to take over. Better to choose that person yourself than have a court do it for you. And that someone, I said, just happens to be you. He smiled, not even a little embarrassed. I'm invested in this family's future, he said, and I understand property. It just makes sense. There it was again. It just makes sense. I've lived long enough to know that when people start saying, it just makes sense, what they mean is, it makes sense for me, and I'm hoping you're too tired to argue. I didn't argue. Not then. I'll think about it, I said, and stood up to clear the dishes before my temper said something my heart would regret. Later that night, when the house was finally quiet, I sat in my favorite chair in the living room and listened. Mia's laughter from upstairs, the muffled thump of Aiden dropping something, the soft creak of the old house adjusting around its guests. And then, through the thin wall by the stairs, Claire's voice. Once it's in the trust, she can't just change her mind, Claire said in a low tone. Right? Relax, Leo replied. I know what I'm doing. I'll get her there. She always folds when she thinks someone might call her difficult. You told me that yourself. My fingers tightened around the arm of the chair. And the earlier we start, he went on, the more time we have to structure things. By the time anything happens, the kids will be set. This place could fund their college, our new house, everything. It's a waste sitting in her name doing nothing. A waste. My husband's overtime shifts, my own double shifts after he got sick. The nights I sat at this table with a calculator and a half-empty coffee pot, praying the numbers would stretch. A waste. I sat there in the dark, letting their words sink in like cold water. To them, I wasn't a person in a home. I was an obstacle wrapped around an asset. I went to bed that night with a headache and a sentence burned into my mind. She always folds. They didn't know me as well as they thought. The next morning, Claire cornered me at the stove while I was scrambling eggs. "Mom, can we talk about expectations?" she said, carefully, like she was reading from a script. "Expectations," I repeated, stirring the pan. "For whom?" "For all of us," she said, "now that we're living together for a bit." There was that "for a bit" again, stretching longer every time she said it. "Leo has a very demanding schedule," she continued. "Early calls with Europe, late meetings with the firm. He needs a quiet environment to focus. Routine is really important for his performance." "He sounds like a very delicate flower," I said. She frowned. "I'm serious, Mom. He can't be worrying about meals and chaos in the mornings. It throws off his whole day. And I'm juggling the kids' online classes and my caseload. We need some structure." "And where do I fit into this structure?" I asked. "Well," she said, brightening, "you're always up early anyway. You've said you like having something to do. We thought maybe you could handle breakfasts. Make sure coffee is on by 5, hot food ready, kids up and dressed, that kind of thing. It would help so much." "We," I said, "meaning you and your husband." "Yes," she said, missing the point entirely. "As the host, it kind of falls to you, doesn't it?" I turned the stove off before I burned the eggs. "Let me make sure I understand," I said, wiping my hands again and looking her right in the eye. "You move into my house without a proper ask. Your husband brings legal documents to put my home under his control. And now you're telling me it's my job to set alarms so I can serve him breakfast at 5 in the morning because his schedule is demanding?" She folded her arms. "When you say it like that, it sounds bad," she said. "But we're a family. Everyone contributes. You always cooked for Dad." "Yes," I said, "for my husband. In our home. There's a difference." Claire sighed, annoyed. "Mom, please don't make this difficult. Leo gets really stressed when things feel out of control. Just try it tomorrow. One good morning can set the tone for the whole day. You want him to feel welcome, don't you?" Welcome. In a house he was already trying to move out from under me. I smiled then, because something inside me clicked into place. A cold, clear little decision. "You're right," I said softly. "The tone of the day is very important. I'll make sure tomorrow morning is unforgettable." Claire relaxed instantly, misreading my smile like she had my whole life. "I knew you'd understand," she said, kissing my cheek, already moving on. "Just have everything ready by 5. Leo likes his coffee strong, eggs soft, toast not too dark. He's very particular." "I bet he is," I said. Later, while everyone else was busy with screens and noise, I walked down the hallway and paused by the guest room door. I could hear Leo's voice on a call, saying phrases like, "Unlock the equity," and "Older owner, no resistance from kids." He laughed at something the person on the other end said. "No, she's not a problem," he replied. "She's just lonely. We'll position it like we're rescuing her from being overwhelmed. Once she's in the trust, the house is basically ours." I stood there in my own hallway, invisible in my own home, and realized something very simple and very important. If they wanted to treat me like staff in a house they assumed they already owned, I didn't need to shout or slam doors. I just needed to set an alarm, smile sweetly, and make sure the next move was mine, not theirs. And that's how we got to the morning when I changed their phones, rearranged their important papers, and invited a very unexpected guest to their precious 5 a.m. breakfast. The guest who would turn their whole little plan upside down. But that part hadn't happened yet. At this point, they still thought I was going to fold. They had no idea breakfast was going to be the first course of their wake-up call. I woke before my alarm the next morning, not because I was eager to play chef at dawn, but because the older you get, the more your body thinks sleep is an optional hobby. The house was still dark, the kind of stillness that makes you remember how peaceful life used to be before uninvited suitcases started breeding in your hallway. I shuffled into the kitchen, turned on the kettle, and thought about the conversation I'd overheard last night. Leo talking about unlocking equity, Claire insisting that I'd fold eventually, like I was a lawn chair at a picnic. They had no idea how many women my age stop folding the minute someone tries to reshape their life. By the time the clock hit 4:45, the downstairs lights flicked on. Leo walked in wearing a robe I didn't recognize, navy silk with a monogram on the chest. His initials weren't even stitched straight, which told me it was probably purchased on sale, but worn like royalty. "Morning, Mrs. Ward," he said, smiling like he was the prize and I was the contestant. "Right on schedule." "Good morning," I replied. "Coffee's brewing." He inhaled dramatically. "Ah, perfect. This is exactly the kind of environment I need to maintain peak performance." He said this like I'd asked. As he sat at the table, he began tapping into his laptop, the same laptop he'd tucked into that important files box. The screen reflected numbers, property photos, and what looked like a spreadsheet full of people's names. I placed the plate of eggs and toast in front of him. "Thank you," he said, taking a bite. "Consistency is everything in a household." "Consistency," I echoed. "Good to know." He didn't notice the tone. Men like Leo rarely do. Claire drifted downstairs 20 minutes later, bleary-eyed, hair messy, phone already in her hand. "Is everything ready?" she asked, not even looking at me. "Yes," I said. "Everything." She poured herself coffee, leaned against the counter, and scrolled while I dried the dishes I'd just washed. "You're a lifesaver, Mom," she said. "I don't know what we'd do without you." I wondered if she realized she only said that when she needed something. Leo wiped his mouth and leaned back, satisfied. "Well," he said, "since we're all here, maybe we can talk through next steps." I raised an eyebrow. "Next steps for what?" "For the transition," he said casually. "Your house situation." "Already?" I asked. "I haven't even brushed my teeth yet." He chuckled. "Financial timing doesn't wait for dental hygiene." I smiled, but it wasn't with kindness. "Before we discuss anything," I said, "I'd like to understand why you're in such a rush." Leo didn't hesitate. "The market is extremely favorable right now," he said. "If we move quickly, we can position the trust to benefit the kids long term. The sooner the property is under proper management, the better. And by proper management, you mean you." He nodded like I'd awarded him a gold star. "Exactly. Property is an asset, Mrs. Ward. You've done well so far, but this is a valuable home, and you're at the point in life where what?" I asked. He hesitated, searching for the polite version of an insult. "Where it helps to have support," he said. Claire chimed in. "Mom, we're not saying you can't handle things. We're saying you shouldn't have to. That's why Leo is here. He knows all this stuff, trusts, equity management, probate laws, things older adults struggle with. Older adults. Like I was 2 days away from needing a medical alert bracelet and a helper monkey. I rinsed my hands under cold water, letting the chill slow my heartbeat. "Well," I said calmly, "it's very thoughtful of you both to worry about my golden years, but I manage my life just fine." Claire frowned. Leo frowned. "Let's revisit the paperwork tonight," he said. "I can walk you through the benefits. You'll see this is the smart choice." "I'll think about it," I said, the same way I say, "I'll think about it," when someone tries to sell me solar panels at Costco. Leo gathered his laptop. Claire followed him upstairs. As soon as they were out of sight, Mia came into the kitchen rubbing her eyes. "Grandma, why were they talking about your house?" I paused. "Grown-up things, sweetheart." She yawned, sat at the table, and fiddled with a broken pencil she'd found. "I heard Mom say something about after Grandma's gone." She looked up at me with wide, concerned eyes. "Where would you go? You'd come with us, right?" My chest tightened. "Mia," I said softly, "no one is sending me anywhere. Don't you worry." She nodded, satisfied, for now. But her question told me everything I needed to know. Leo wasn't just circling the property. He was circling me. And he was counting on my daughter to help him do it. What he didn't know was that I'd already decided exactly how this transition was going to go, and he wasn't going to like it. But the real shift in power didn't happen until later that day, when I discovered something in the guest room that changed the entire trajectory of what I was dealing with. Claire took the kids to school. Leo left for a meeting, and the house fell into the quiet hum I used to enjoy before it started carrying the echoes of conversations I wasn't supposed to hear. By 10 a.m., I'd finished wiping down the kitchen, again, and made myself a second cup of tea. If retirement has taught me anything, it's that tea is a coping mechanism, not a beverage. I decided to tidy the guest room, mostly as an excuse to see what Leo had scattered around. Men who hide their motives tend to hide other things, too. I walked in expecting the usual: suitcases half open, toiletries on the dresser, scattered socks. What I didn't expect was the manila folder sitting slightly open on the nightstand. Not the one he'd shown us at dinner. This one was thicker. It was labeled, in precise handwriting, Ward Property, Prelim Strategy. Not Family Trust. Not Inheritance Plan. Strategy. My stomach dropped. I sat on the edge of the bed and opened it. The first page was a printed map of my neighborhood with red circles around 3 properties, including mine. I flipped through the rest. Page after page of notes typed in neat bullet points. Owner age, 68, lives alone. Home paid in full. Asset value, high, stable market. Emotional leverage points, grandchildren, fear of aging, desire for family closeness. Potential resistance, mild, historically folds under emotional pressure. Timeline recommendation, 2 to 4 weeks for signing. Primary obstacle, skepticism towards son-in-law. I stared at that line for a long moment. Primary obstacle, skepticism toward son-in-law. I wasn't an obstacle. I was a line item, a calculation. The next pages were worse. Mock-up trust documents, expected profit margins, projections of unlockable equity, and a disturbing little section titled Post-Transition Plan. It outlined exactly how the house could be renovated for resale, including converting my sewing room into an office, tearing out my husband's workshop in the garage, removing the oak tree he planted in '82 because it blocked the resale view. They had plans for my house, dreams for my house, and none of those dreams included me. Then I reached the last page. It was a draft email from Leo to someone named Jerome. C's mother is easier than expected. Trust will be signed if we keep applying emotional pressure. Once she's in senior housing, disposal of the property should be fast. We'll update when the deed work is ready. Senior housing. Disposal. Easier than expected. I sat there in that tidy little room, folder in my lap, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. A full, clean, unstoppable anger. Not the hot kind, not the yelling kind, the cold, intelligent kind.
The kind that sharpens your mind and steadies your hands. The kind that says, absolutely not. I slid the folder back exactly where I'd found it, smoothing the corner like nothing had moved. When Leo and Claire returned that afternoon, they acted like everything was normal, like they hadn't outlined my future as if I were a problematic tenant. "Mom," Claire said, "Leo has a great idea about updating your porch. We can show you some pictures tonight." "Wonderful," I said with a pleasant smile. "Tonight works perfectly." Leo looked at me for a second too long. He sensed something, maybe a shift, maybe the stillness before a storm. But like all arrogant men, he mistook my politeness for surrender. He had no idea I'd read his strategy, and he definitely didn't know I'd already started writing my own. What he said next told me everything about his endgame, and it was even more brazen than I expected. That evening, after dinner, which of course I cooked because apparently being the host is a full-time position, Leo cleared his throat the way men do when they're about to say something they think is profound. "Mrs. Ward," he began, sliding a glossy brochure toward me. "I've been thinking about your future." "I already have one," I replied, sipping my tea. "It involves silence and my slippers." He chuckled politely, completely missing that I wasn't joking. "This," he said, tapping the brochure, "is Maple Ridge Senior Village. It's beautiful. Brand new facilities, 5-star care ratings, fitness programs, community events. It would be perfect for you." "Perfect," I repeated. "What an ambitious word." Claire leaned forward eagerly. "Mom, it's not like one of those sad places. It's modern, independent living. You'd have friends, activities. You'd never be bored or lonely." "I'm not lonely now," I said. They still exchanged a look that made my blood simmer. That looking. The look adult children give their aging parents when they've decided the parents' feelings are quaint but irrelevant. Leo troubled his hands like a salesman finishing a pitch. "You deserve a life without stress," he sang. "No yard work, no maintenance, no stairs. And such the trust is signed, we can get you consumed quickly." "I see," I said slowly. "So the trust must come before the moving." "Well," Leo said with a soft shrug, "such the only way to ensure everything is legally clean. But think of it as a practical step, so you folks enjoy the curiosity." "And what," I asked, "happens to this house after my next chapter begins?" He said, "It becomes a family assets. Something you can develop, maybe book, maybe focused. It's all opportunity." Opportunity. I thought of my late husband sanding the porch steps one autumn because you wanted them smooth enough for our grandkids to sit on without splinters. I thought of the wall where I marked Claire's height every year until she went for college. I thought of every holiday meal cooked in this kitchen since before Louis was born. Opportunity. Laura concerned confidently. "You allow me to manage the trust. I can guarantee a higher monthly payout for you. You'll be comfortable for the rest of your life." I leaned back in my chair.
Leo, I said quietly, how long do you taking the rest of my life is? He witnessed, thrown off with the question. Claire shifted uncomfortably. Well, no. Discovery as you've borne the math. You've calculated how many yourself about, how quickly the property can change hands, and you're paying canoptics for it. Plus first tips for that's a very and cheraboutint. Beyond of your bones, I replied, drew about the your women that matches the tapping, the poutines, the embracing, and the HR. Claire slammed on the table. Mom, will you please stopping being so suspicious? Lex eyes Congress to help you customers. Do I? I asked calmly. Because from where audio seems to be accustomed the best about someone who walked into my content with doctor's readies. One of those tiny, barely noticeable glances people exercising when war is such about. And you're pushing the book's body back toward you. I don't recall you asking with books. Text. Pro what watching, because them, Leo cleared his watching again. Week-cause week, closing down and visiting voting. Production. Watching. Top Facebook upside told me across much profession, interest today facing a 4. All not today kids sports. Cassisi, relieved, Claire asleep. Pliable, predictable, ready to
But they didn't know I'd already seen their strategy blueprint. And I'd already begun writing my counterplay. But the real turning point came the next morning, when someone showed up at my door who wasn't supposed to be part of this story at all. The next morning, I was watering the plants on my porch when a silver sedan pulled up in front of my house. A woman stepped out, mid-40s, well-dressed, tired eyes, holding a slim purse like it was a shield. Mrs. Ward? She asked. Yes. I'm sorry to intrude. My name is Valerie Pierce. I used to be married to Leo. I felt the blood drain from my face. Oh, I said. Well, that's unexpected. She gave a hollow, practiced smile. That's how it always starts with him. I invited her inside and made tea, because when life starts unraveling, old habits kick in, and we sat at the kitchen table where Leo had delivered his pitch just the night before. She glanced around slowly, recognition in her eyes. He likes homes like this, she said softly. Older, paid off, in good neighborhoods, owned by women he thinks are easy to sway. My stomach dropped. You're not the first, she continued, voice trembling. Leo doesn't marry for love. He marries for leverage. Every word landed like a stone. He tells each woman she's special, she said. Says he wants to build a future with her. Then he starts talking about practical steps, trusts, asset management. It's the same script. I leaned back, breathing steadily, letting her speak. By the time I realized what he was doing, Valerie said, he had access to everything. Bank info, life insurance details, the deed to my condo. He talked me into moving to a smaller place, said it was for my safety. What happened? I asked. I lost everything, she said simply. He refinanced behind my back, left me with debt I never agreed to. Then he filed for divorce and disappeared. She wiped her cheek quickly. He preys on women with property, women who trust, women with adult children who think he's a responsible provider. Claire's voice drifted from upstairs, laughing, talking to him, completely unaware. What made you come here? I asked. Because I heard he married again, she said. A mutual acquaintance saw photos online and recognized him. I followed the threads. I realized he was using your address. She hesitated, then lowered her voice. And because you need to know something before it's too late. She reached into her purse and handed me a folded piece of paper.
"This," she said, "is the attorney he used with me and with the woman before me." I unfolded it. Same attorney, same template, same trust structure, same language, same trap. Valerie took a deep breath. "Mrs. Ward, Leo doesn't just manipulate. He takes everything. And when he's done, he leaves you with nothing but paperwork and pain." I placed my hand over hers. "I'm so sorry," I said quietly. "Truly." She shook her head. "I just didn't want it to happen to someone else, especially another older woman. We're too easy to underestimate, but we aren't fools." "No, we are not. Not anymore." I thanked her, walked her to the door, and watched her drive away. Upstairs, I heard Claire say trust again, and paperwork, and Mom will understand once we explain. I walked back into my kitchen, folded the attorney's document neatly, and placed it inside a drawer. Then I boiled water again, not because I needed more tea, but because I needed time to let the truth settle. Leo wasn't opportunistic. He was deliberate, calculated, consistent. And now, thanks to Valerie, I knew his pattern and exactly how to dismantle it. But I had no idea the next revelation would hit even harder, because the person who exposed it wasn't a stranger, but someone inside my own family. I had just finished cleaning up the lunch dishes, because around here, apparently, plates wash themselves as long as Mom is nearby, when I heard soft footsteps behind me. Mia. She looked pale, chewing her bottom lip the way she used to when she broke a toy and didn't know how to tell me. "Grandma," she whispered, eyes wide. "Can I talk to you without Mom and Leo?" My stomach tightened. "Of course, sweetheart," I said. "Let's sit."
We moved to the couch, and she sat close enough that I could feel how tense she was. She held out a crumpled piece of paper. "I found this in Leo's bag," she said. "He left his zipper open. I wasn't snooping, I promise. I just saw my name on it." I unfolded the paper carefully. It wasn't a drawing or a school assignment. It was a checklist, a detailed, itemized, typed checklist titled Ward Household, Influence and Transition Strategy. I felt my pulse throb behind my eyes. Under leverage points, the list included: use Claire's financial insecurity, emphasize safety concerns, re older homeowner, build dependency through daily routines, shift grandmother's self-image to caregiver role, encourage increased responsibility to create fatigue, isolate grandmother from outside advisors, use children to reinforce family needs unity narrative. I stared at those lines, those cold, mechanical lines, as if they were written in another language. Mia's voice cracked. "Grandma, what does shift self-image to caregiver role mean?" I swallowed, hard. "It means," I said gently, "he wants to make me think taking care of him is my job." "That's what I thought," she said, tears gathering at her lashes. "Grandma, Leo makes Mom different. He says you're fragile. He says you're overwhelmed. But you're not. You're the strongest person I know." My eyes burned. I'm not someone who cries easily, but hearing that from a 12-year-old who sees more truth than her own mother, that one cut deep. "Mia," I said softly, "thank you for telling me. You did the right thing." She wiping her cheek. "I heard Mom say last night that you should move out before Christmas, that Leo needs space to manage things." Grandma, are you leaving? I gathered her close. No, sweetheart, I'm not going anywhere. But Mom said, I don't care what she said. I whispered into her hair, this is my home, and I will not be pushed out of it. She hugged me tighter. I don't trust Leo, she whispered, and I don't think he loves Mom. I think he just loves her wallet. That child saw everything that mattered. I kissed her forehead. You're safe, I said. I promise you. And I'm going to fix this. She nodded, believing me in the way only children do, fully, blindly, and with all their hearts. She didn't know just how true that promise would become. After she returned upstairs, I sat alone with that monstrous checklist in my lap. Every tactic, every planned manipulation, every psychological squeeze, printed neatly like a manual, a script, a strategy guide for dismantling a woman's autonomy. And in that moment, reading how he meant to break me down, my sorrow hardened into something else entirely. Resolve. He wanted my house. He wanted control. He wanted to use my own daughter as a tool. Fine. If this was a game, then I was done pretending not to know the rules. And the first move of my counter-strategy landed sooner than I expected, when someone very authoritative knocked on my front door. Around 5 p.m., just as I was setting the last of the dinner plates on the table, a firm, official-sounding knock echoed through the house. Not the kind of knock family uses, not the polite tap of a neighbor. This was a badge knock, the kind that tells you the person on the other side is not delivering cookies. I opened the door. A woman in a charcoal blazer stood on my porch, flashing her ID. Detective Lorraine Keller, County Financial Crimes Division. My heart stuttered. Mrs. Ward, she said, I'm sorry to come unannounced, but we need to speak with you about someone connected to this address. My first thought was, it's Leo. He's wanted. He's done this before. But I kept my face calm. Of course, I said. Come in. She stepped inside, glanced around with a practiced eye, and lowered her voice. We've received multiple reports about a man named Leo Price. Does that name mean anything to you? I exhaled carefully. He's my son-in-law. Detective Keller's jaw tightened. She took out a small tablet and swiped through a page. Mrs. Ward, Leo Price is under active investigation for real estate fraud, elder manipulation, and financial coercion. We believe he may be part of a coordinated network of individuals who target older homeowners. Exactly what Valerie had warned me. Exactly what that file upstairs had outlined. I nodded slowly. I see, I said. And what, specifically, are you investigating? She showed me a series of documents, bank statements, trust paperwork templates, emails, 3 names of previous women, all older, all homeowners, all with adult children, all financially wiped out within 2 years of knowing him. One name stopped me cold. Valerie Pierce.
She really had lost everything. Detective Keller continued. We believe he uses relationships, marriage in some cases, to gain access to assets. Then he pressures the senior to transfer property into a trust he controls. I folded my hands. And then? And then the senior moves, she said, or is pushed, and the house is suddenly restructured and sold. Funds vanish into shell companies. Victims end up with nothing.
I nodded once. And what do you need from me? She took out a small voice recorder. Any information you can provide. His movements, his conversations, paperwork he's presented. Anything that supports a timeline of influence. I considered the folder upstairs, the checklist, the attorney's document. Leo had done this before. He was about to do it again. To me. But now I had backup, and they weren't small-time officers. These were people who'd seen his pattern, mapped it, followed it, and they'd come straight to my front door. "Detective," I said, "there is something you need to see." But before I could move, footsteps thundered down the stairs. Leo. His voice sharp, controlled, polite, but with an edge I recognized now as panic wrapped in charm. "What's going on?" he asked, stepping into the room. Detective Keller turned to him. "Mr. Price," she said evenly, "I believe you and I need to talk." He froze, just for a fraction of a second, but I saw it. The flicker of recognition, the tightening of his jaw, the micro-calculation of a man caught too soon. He forced a smile. "Detective," he said, "I'm sure there's a misunderstanding." "Oh," she said, her tone like sharpened steel. "I'm certain there's no misunderstanding at all." Leo glanced at me. I smiled sweetly. "Actually, Leo," I said, "you might want to sit down." His eyes darkened, and that's when I realized. He knew. He knew this wasn't going to be the easy score he'd expected. But he didn't know how far I was prepared to go. Because the next words out of Detective Keller's mouth detonated the entire room and revealed that Leo's plan wasn't just greedy. It was dangerous on a level I hadn't even considered. Detective Keller didn't raise her voice. She didn't reach for cuffs. She didn't even step toward Leo. She simply said one sentence that changed everything in that room. "Mr. Price, your previous victims have identified you, and we now have confirmation of an organized enterprise behind your actions." Leo's expression cracked. Not a lot, just enough for me to see the real man underneath. The one who didn't smile, didn't negotiate, didn't charm. The one who calculated. Claire rushed into the room then, hair wild, confusion written all over her face. "What's happening?" she demanded. "Why is a detective here?" Leo jumped in quickly. "Sweetheart, this is a mistake. A complete mix-up. Someone's spreading lies." Detective Keller cut him off. "We already have statements, Mrs. Price. Multiple. And now we're confirming Mr. Price's connection to a larger network targeting seniors with high-value homes." Claire froze, stiffened, then shook her head rapidly, refusing reality. No, Leo wouldn't do that. He's helping us. He's helping my mom." I stepped forward gently. "Claire," I said, "he wasn't helping you. He was using you. And he was planning to take my home." She turned to me like a drowning person reaching for anything. "Mom, don't say that. He loves us. He loves the kids. He's been nothing but supportive." "He's been nothing but strategic," I corrected. Leo's voice sharpened. "Patricia, that's enough." "Enough?" I echoed. "Leo, I've barely begun." Detective Keller placed a folder on the table, the same type Valerie had given me. Inside it were bank transfers, trust schematics, false appraisal reports, tax shelter outlines, and a list of women he'd targeted over the past 10 years. Claire's face drained of all color. This can't be real." "Oh, it's very real," Keller said. "We've traced funds through 5 shell companies, all of them registered to a holding structure connected to Mr. Price." Leo's jaw flexed, the kind of flex men do when the room stops bending to their will. "I want a lawyer," he said. You'll get one, Detective Keller replied calmly, after we finish this interview and take you in. And that's when Leo made the mistake that ended this entire story. He reached for his bag, not violently, not suddenly, just intentionally. Detective Keller moved first, stepping between him and the bag. "Step away," she ordered. "It's just my laptop," Leo said, raising his hands. "My work files." "Your work files," she said, "are evidence." He hesitated, then he smiled. And that's when my heart clenched, not out of fear, but because I recognized the expression. The same smile he used on Claire, on me, on every woman he'd taken something from. Calculated, weaponized, soulless.
She really had lost everything. Detective Keller continued. We believe he uses relationships, marriage in some cases, to gain access to assets. Then he pressures the senior to transfer property into a trust he controls. I folded my hands. And then? And then the senior moves, she said, or is pushed, and the house is suddenly restructured and sold. Funds vanish into shell companies. Victims end up with nothing. I nodded once. And what do you need from me? She took out a small voice recorder. Any information you can provide. His movements, his conversations, paperwork he's presented. Anything that supports a timeline of influence. I considered the folder upstairs, the checklist, the attorney's document. Leo had done this before. He was about to do it again. To me. But now I had backup, and they weren't small-time officers. These were people who'd seen his pattern, mapped it, followed it, and they'd come straight to my front door. "Detective," I said, "there is something you need to see." But before I could move, footsteps thundered down the stairs. Leo. His voice sharp, controlled, polite, but with an edge I recognized now as panic wrapped in charm. "What's going on?" he asked, stepping into the room. Detective Keller turned to him. "Mr. Price," she said evenly, "I believe you and I need to talk." He froze, just for a fraction of a second, but I saw it. The flicker of recognition, the tightening of his jaw, the micro-calculation of a man caught too soon. He forced a smile. "Detective," he said, "I'm sure there's a misunderstanding." "Oh," she said, her tone like sharpened steel. "I'm certain there's no misunderstanding at all." Leo glanced at me. I smiled sweetly. "Actually, Leo," I said, "you might want to sit down." His eyes darkened, and that's when I realized. He knew. He knew this wasn't going to be the easy score he'd expected. But he didn't know how far I was prepared to go. Because the next words out of Detective Keller's mouth detonated the entire room and revealed that Leo's plan wasn't just greedy. It was dangerous on a level I hadn't even considered. Detective Keller didn't raise her voice. She didn't reach for cuffs. She didn't even step toward Leo. She simply said one sentence that changed everything in that room. "Mr. Price, your previous victims have identified you, and we now have confirmation of an organized enterprise behind your actions." Leo's expression cracked. Not a lot, just enough for me to see the real man underneath. The one who didn't smile, didn't negotiate, didn't charm. The one who calculated. Claire rushed into the room then, hair wild, confusion written all over her face. "What's happening?" she demanded. "Why is a detective here?" Leo jumped in quickly. "Sweetheart, this is a mistake. A complete mix-up. Someone's spreading lies." Detective Keller cut him off. "We already have statements, Mrs. Price. Multiple. And now we're confirming Mr. Price's connection to a larger network targeting seniors with high-value homes." Claire froze,
stiffened, then shook her head rapidly, refusing reality. No, no, Leo wouldn't do that. He's helping us. He's helping my mom. I stepped forward gently. Claire, I said, he wasn't helping you. He was using you, and he was planning to take my home. She turned to me like a drowning person reaching for anything. Mom, don't say that. He loves us. He loves the kids. He's been nothing but supportive. He's been nothing but strategic, I corrected. Leo's voice sharpened. Patricia, that's enough. Enough? I echoed. Leo, I've barely begun. Detective Keller placed a folder on the table, the same type Valerie had given me. Inside it were bank transfers, trust schematics, false appraisal reports, tax shelter outlines, and a list of women he'd targeted over the past 10 years. Claire's face drained of all color. This can't be real. Oh, it's very real, Keller said. We've traced funds through 5 shell companies, all of them registered to a holding structure connected to Mr. Price. Leo's jaw flexed, the kind of flex men do when the room stops bending to their will. I want a lawyer, he said. You'll get one, Detective Keller replied calmly, after we finish this interview and take you in. And that's when Leo made the mistake that ended this entire story. He reached for his bag, not violently, not suddenly, just intentionally. Detective Keller moved first, stepping between him and the bag. Step away, she ordered. It's just my laptop, Leo said, raising his hands. My work files. Your work files, she said, are evidence. He hesitated, then he smiled. And that's when my heart clenched, not out of fear, but because I recognized the expression. The same smile he used on Claire, on me, on every woman he'd taken something from. Calculated, weaponized, soulless.
Patricia, he said softly, you're making a mistake. You needed me. Your daughter needed me. Without me, this house, this life, you can't keep up forever. Detective Keller turned to me. Mrs. Ward, would you like to respond? I stepped forward. I don't know where my voice came from, but when I spoke, it was steady as bedrock. No, Leo, I said. The mistake was yours. You thought I was alone. You thought I was weak. You thought my age made me blind. I held up the folded checklist Mia had given me. You thought wrong. For the first time since I met him, Leo looked truly afraid. Detective Keller nodded to the officers waiting quietly on the porch. Mr. Price, she said, you're under arrest for coordinated financial exploitation, trust fraud, and elder-targeted property coercion. The click of handcuffs echoed like justice itself. Claire sank onto the couch, covering her face, sobbing. Anger, heartbreak, embarrassment all twisting together. I sat beside her, took her hand and whispered, You didn't fail. You trusted someone who didn't deserve it. That's his shame, not yours. She cried harder. Mia came downstairs and hugged her mother tightly. Aiden hid his face in my sweater. And as Leo was led out of my house, I felt something loosen inside me. A weight I didn't know I'd been carrying. Later, Detective Keller pulled me aside. Mrs. Ward, your documentation, your awareness, your clarity, it's extraordinary. Most people never see the danger until it's too late. I'm old, I said with a soft smile. Not foolish. She paused. We could use someone like you, she said, on our advisory board. Someone who understands how these men think. Someone who saw the warning signs early. I laughed. Detective, I'm a grandmother. I bake banana bread and play cards. And apparently, she replied,
You dismantle criminals. I didn't answer immediately, but I thought of Valerie, of those other women, of Mia, of Claire, of how easily this could have gone another way. And I nodded. All right, I said. Tell me where to sign. Later that week, when the house was quiet again and the kids were finally asleep, I stood on my porch breathing in the cool night air. For the first time in months, the house felt like mine again. Safe, quiet, unthreatened. Claire joined me, wrapped in a blanket. "Mom," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." I placed my hand on hers. "We heal," I said. "That's what families do when we stop pretending and start choosing each other again." She leaned her head on my shoulder. "Mia wants to help you plant flowers tomorrow," she said. "She says the house needs happy things." "She's right," I smiled. The porch light glowed across the yard my husband once tended with such patience. I felt strength settle into me, not the brittle strength of pride, but the deep-rooted strength of a woman who survived being underestimated. Women like me learn slowly, but thoroughly. And once we see the truth, we never unsee it. As I turned to go inside, I thought of the women Detective Keller had mentioned, and I whispered to myself, no one takes another grandmother's home on my watch. Thanks for being here with me. And if this story stayed with you, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to EchoLens Stories. And tell me where you're listening from.